With Hurricane Francine on the doorstep, the Saints are still remaining in New Orleans to prep for Dallas. Doesn't matter if a storm's coming. They're going to be ready. Maybe they're the storm. Our initial thoughts on whether they can duplicate last week's performance. They're not going to win 47-10. Let's get real. But can they do anything similar to what they did in the Dome last Sunday? We'll talk about that. A few words on Tulane, Oklahoma, and the LSU, South Carolina. Game day is going to be there. We won't be there, but we'll tell you about it. Our best bets Wednesday edition. We're doing it on Wednesday instead of Thursday. We're not going to be here either on Thursday, by the way. And they can't be worse than they were last week. You want to talk about stinking up the joint. We're going to get some potpourri for this week. Promise it's going to be better. We're cramming 2 shows into one, and we're going to do it in warp speed. It's all coming up next on the Dattitude podcast.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.
Where you at, New Orleans? I know where you at. My friends out there, everywhere, elsewhere, everywhere out there, you're battening down the hatches this morning. And that's why, to let you know, we are recording the show on Tuesday night. Most of you know I do this show from my home office, my home studio. And I'm afraid, quite frankly, that I'm not going to have power on Wednesday morning. And we don't know how long it's going to last. So we are recording this show on Tuesday night. No live comments, which is going to be very weird for us. But we're going to do just fine. This is Dattitude, episode number 277, presented by Evangeline Securities for a Wednesday, September 11th, 2024. I am your host, Jim Derry. Of course, you know that. Whether you are watching on one of our NOLA.com social media channels or you listen to the podcast after the fact, as always, we not only welcome you to the Dattitude family, but if you are in and around the New Orleans area, we wish you the best of luck and that may the storm, if it does go over us, again, I don't know what's going to happen as I record this. It does go over us. Hopefully it goes quickly. As minimal damage as possible. You know, I think back to when I started the gig at bet.nola.com 3 years ago. And, you know, I was moving from the high school ranks back to the professional ranks of sorts, working with Zach at Bet.Nola. And right when I got in there, I'd have hit. And the first show I ever did for Bet.Nola.com was from a hotel in Panama City, Florida. So that's how that goes. Look, we know what the word is. We're always on alert here. So we go with the flow. And just in case we don't have power, we may. Hopefully we will. Hopefully you all do. Or if you don't have power, maybe you're watching me without power as you watch this. But everyone stay safe. We love you all. Thank you for being a part of the Dattitude family. Also today, whenever I see that September 11th on the screen, think back, man. As Alan Jackson said, where were you when the world stopped turning? I know where I was. Excuse me, I'm a little verklempt just talking about it. Gabe doesn't remember where he was. He was like 3 or 4. You do remember. Yeah, well, 3 years old. He remembers that. I'll ask him in just a minute because he's going to come on and give us his best bet. But never forget. I always say that on September 11th. I mean it. I know I'll never forget. I know most of you won't either, at least the ones that are old enough to remember. I was already a middle-aged man by then. 23 years ago. I was 33 years old. My ex-wife at the time called me, and back then I worked on a copy desk at that point in my career, and I worked nights, so I didn't get home till 12, 1, sometimes 2 in the morning, and so I was sleeping. She called me and I didn't answer, and she called me and I didn't answer, and finally answered. She goes, "You got to turn the TV on. Got to turn the TV on." I don't think I stopped watching TV 4 days. Hard to believe that happened here in America, but it did. And we we say we never forget, and we thankful for all those who served at that time, for sure. Not today, but normally you could be a part of the show by typing in your comment, YouTube, Facebook, and you tell us hello, and we tell you hello back. And we had so many great comments on Monday. What a wonderful show. I mean, it was very well watched. We had, I wouldn't say it was the most comments we ever had on a show, but it was up there. And so we're growing. We want you to be, especially on Mondays, we call it Mono-E Mondays for a reason. It was a very fun show. It was a pleasant show. We're not going to have a lot of 47 to 10s to talk about. But yeah, so normally you can tell us hello, and you can still type in your comments. I won't see them until after the fact. Again, recording the show on Tuesday. You'll have access. Please subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page if you haven't already done so. We do shorts every day. Some days we do one, some days we do two, and every now and then I even put up 3. So it just kind of depends on what we're doing. If I lose power, Gabe's going to put up a short or 2 from this show probably. We'll put up our best bets, little clips of our best bets. And also our Dattitude TikTok page is doing well. All right, let's get the show started. By the way, if you want to get in touch with me on X at Jim Derry Jr., email at jderry@theadvocate.com. You can find me easily. I'd give you my cell phone number, but we got too many Yahoos. If I ever go maybe a month without a really stupid, moronic comment from a hater, maybe then I'll give you my cell phone number. Until then, no. Real quick, I'm going to talk about it. You see the lines on the screen for the locals. The LSU Tigers, we're going to find out a lot about them this week. It's on Eric Asher's show on Tuesday afternoon, talking about it. Look, they sleptwalked through Nichols, but it's not that surprising. It's Nichols, and they were coming off of a tough loss. They lost John Emery as well. Their running back room is thin. Now they go on the road to South Carolina as a 7-point favorite in the SEC. That's a tough thing. Over under of 50. So they think it's to be fairly low scoring for college football. It's in the NFL, that'd be a high number. And in college football, that's fairly low. But the LSU Tigers are favored. South Carolina played well. We'll see. I don't have an opinion on that game either way, as far as betting wise goes. I would hope LSU would show up, but whether they will or not, we'll probably talk more about it because Friday got a treat for you. Larry Holder, not that Larry Holder isn't a treat. He's our favorite guest because he comes on more than anyone else. But Friday, Larry is unavailable, so I reached out. Mike Detillier is going to come on the show. So I'm sure we'll talk about LSU on Friday morning, just a little bit at least. The Tulane Green Wave, 13-point underdogs going to Oklahoma. 2 games in a row against tough opponents. Man, they really – I know we just touched on it Monday, but I'll tell you, I don't want to say spit the bit, but, man, they had a chance to really take that next step towards what we've been talking about them and having a potential for to make the 12-team playoff. Now, to me – well, not to me. I mean, I think it's clear. To have any chance to make that playoff, they got to win out, including this one. I mean, I was talking with Eric, and one of the things that I said was, and I believe this, that had they gone 1-1 in these 2 games and been close in the one they lost, they'd have a chance. So they were close in Saturday's game, but they had to win that one, in my opinion. I mean, especially when you got the lead that they had. They let it slip away. Now, you can talk about the officials' quote-unquote bad call. I mean, I think it was a bad call. Gabe doesn't. It doesn't matter whether it was a bad call or not because they had a chance to win the game. The game was in their hands. They let it get away. Darian Mensah has been outstanding through 3 quarters. He just kind of looked like a freshman in that 4th quarter. You can't score 7 points in the second half and beat a team like Kansas State. You just can't. And so now they're going to have their A game going to Oklahoma. And look, this isn't one of Oklahoma's best teams. So I'm not saying they can't go in there and win. I don't have as much confidence that they can win as I did going into last week. We were right about the spread last week. You know, this is a game either. I wouldn't touch this either way. But I'll say this. If I had to bet it one way or the other, I'd probably take Oklahoma and give the 13. And the reason why, not because I think Oklahoma is that much better, but I think last week's emotional toll is we're going to find out what Tulane's made of too. Because I just think that last week is really going to have a lingering effect. It wouldn't surprise me at all if they go to Oklahoma and lose big. So, again, not a game I would bet, But if I had to bet it, I would give the 13 there. Hope I'm wrong. Really do. Want the Green Wave to succeed. All right, a few notes on the Saints. Again, we're going to have Gabe in just a minute. Tom Casale is coming in with his best bets. Uncle Big Nick actually had to phone his bets in because he's helping his mom with some hurricane prep. He did not have time to do the show today, but we have his picks. We'll talk about him after Tom. And in fact, I may save some of the Saints stuff for the end. But I do want to tell you that if you don't know this already, if you haven't read it, Saints are not leaving New Orleans. They are not going to leave for Hurricane Francine. Hey, they know what they're doing more than any other team. They go through this stuff as much or more than anyone. So they're ready to go. They're going to push up their practice on Wednesday. By the time you watch this, they will have already had it, most likely. Maybe they pushed it up to 6 a.m. Just kidding. But they're not going to put their players or their players' families in harm's way. So they'll get in and out. Dennis Allen, I know for sure, lives up here in the North Shore. You're not going to be wanting to drive that causeway much later than 9 or 10 a.m. I can promise you that. So the Saints will not leave New Orleans for Francine. They are staying here at home and should be able to get out easy because this storm's going to get it in and out. Hopefully everything will be back to normal. And if not, I'm sure they'll make special arrangements for the Saints as they head to Dallas. Speaking of Dallas, can the Saints offensive line do what it did against the Carolina defensive line? Completely different, right? The Saints on PFF now up to 31st, their offensive line. They were 32nd. Woo, they moved up a spot. They're not worst anymore. New England's now worst. Dallas's defensive line is 6th. Big difference from the Carolina Panthers. Micah Parsons might be the best defensive player in the NFL. If he's not, he's one of 2 or 3, and ain't nobody could tell me any different than that. So if he lines up over number 70, yikes. We'll get to see. Now, I went back and watched a lot of it. I thought Penning did okay. I thought he did good. I would say I would go as far as say good in run blocking. In pass blocking, though, and again, it was 1-2, boom, so they didn't have to worry about it. But Trevor Penning still got a long way to go. I didn't think there's some fanboys of the Fanboy podcast. Many of you know who I'm talking about. Oh, he was great. He wasn't great. Go back and watch it. He wasn't great. But it was so fast that they didn't have to worry about it. We'll see. Line opened up at 7. It is down to 6.5, which means Saints money's coming in. Don't jump on the hype train. I'm just telling you. We're going to bring in Gabe because Gabe's pick actually is on this game, he tells me. I have no idea what he's going to pick. But we'll talk a little bit about Saints-Cowboys with our friend of the show, helps produce the show every weekday except Tuesday on the Dattitude podcast presented by Evangel Securities this morning. Gabe Henderson. What's happening?
Hey, what's up, Jim?
How about them Texans?
Didn't play all that well, and they got a win. I'll take that.
And look, I went back and looked. My NFL picks column was terrible. But the ones that I got right were like so right, it's ridiculous. And one of them was Texans-Colts. I predicted the Texans to win 30-28.
Wow.
27.
Yep.
And I predicted the Chiefs to win 26-20. The only reason why I didn't predict 27-20 is the over-under was 47, and I wanted to have a definitive over-under. So anyway, that's the only good I could say about my picks. I think I had a couple others right, but it was a miserable picks first week of picks. But we'll talk about that later. What you got for me?
Well, I'll tell you before we get started, just a little nugget. This is just kind of a victory lap for you and the Derry Carr defenders. I don't know if you saw the PFF passing grades from week 1, but
I went to go look for them, and then I got distracted, so I did not.
Okay. Derek Carr had the best passer grade of any quarterback in week 1.
Oh,
with,
but he's
88.7.
He's third tier. He's a bum. Don't get me started.
So I figured you'd enjoy that. Going right into my pick, I don't see it going the same way this week.
Okay.
I have my best bet this week. I like the Cowboys to cover. Lay the 6.5 at home. Lay the 7, whatever it is. The New Orleans Saints under Dennis Allen are 4-10-1 against the spread after a win. That is a cover rate of 28%
that
since
ain't good.
2022, and that's the worst in the NFL. That number comes courtesy of Joe Osborne of Covers.com. And not only that, obviously the things you mentioned earlier, the Saints offensive line, while they looked good last week, how are they going to hold up against one of the best front sevens in football? And not only that, the Cowboys are dominant at home. I mean, last season, just going back to last season, they won by a margin of 21.5 points per game at home last season. They were superb. And I think it's gonna be a rough week. I think the Saints defense is actually going to show out. It's going to be a battle. I'm not going to play the total. If I had to, I might lean under, but I like the Cowboys to cover at home.
I'm going to save my official pick on this game for Friday, as I do. Unless it's in my best bets, then I can't save it, and it's not in my best bets. I don't have a good feel for this game. Both teams played probably as well as they could play in week 1. I got to be honest, the Cowboys surprised me because it wasn't in my best bets, but it was close to making my card. And Tom's going to come on in a minute. He did put it in his best bets, and I agreed with him wholeheartedly that the Browns they were favored. And a lot of people thought that was weird, and I thought the Browns were better than the Cowboys going into last week. So while I don't do a whole lot of changing up, I definitely don't think that, I don't think it was a fluke that the Cowboys played as well as they did. Now, long term, it still scares me for them. They can't run the ball. That actually is a good matchup for the Saints defense against offense, because the Saints are good against defending the pass. And the Cowboys, if they get one-dimensional, that could really help the Saints defense. So I'm just kind of confused on this game. Again, on one hand, I think that the offensive line is just not going to be able to hold up against the Cowboys defensive line, as you said. However, Clint Kubiak's offense moving so fast, they're going to have to come up with schemes, and I'm sure they will, and stuff we didn't see last Sunday that are going to be super quick. It's not just going to be screen passes. I think you'll see Taysom Hill play an even bigger role than he played, because he's one of the few super physical kind of backs or tight ends or whatever you want to call them that can actually match up with some of the physicality of the Cowboys. So I think you'll see him play an even larger role. But they got to keep Derek Carr upright. And he's not going to have time that passing through to Shaheed when he got nailed as he was throwing the ball. You can take at least a half a second off of that. And if you take a half a second off that pass, he gets sacked because he got hit as he was throwing the ball. So they can't do that this week. And I just worries me a little bit.
Yeah, I will say, while I've expressed concerns about the Saints offensive line in the past, just as many have, when I made that comment, I did just want to clarify that's not slighting the Saints offensive line. I think they played well the other day. I mean, my biggest thing is not many offensive lines in the NFL can hold up well against the Cowboys front seven. I mean, you mentioned it. Micah Parsons is probably the best defensive player in the league. Other than maybe TJ Watt, he's probably the biggest game wrecker. Myles Garrett maybe as well. But he's among those guys in that conversation, and it's crazy. Just two more things before I bounce off.
Yeah. Hold on real quick before you do that. Okay.
Yep,
before you do that, I never told anybody about our friends at Evangel Securities. Do this very quickly. Of course, they're a company. If you don't know, then you're not watching the show. You don't know anything about Evangel Securities? Well, shame on you, because they are the company that you call if you're trying to figure out if it's time to sell your business, whether you're selling your family-run or privately owned business. Call Evangel Securities. Our friend Nick Braden and Ron Hemelt, they got the answers for you. They will start you out with a complimentary valuation of your company, and then if you decide to proceed, they'll tell you where to go from there. But the first thing to do is to find out whether it's time to sell, and you can't even know how much your company is worth unless you call a company like Evangel Securities. They are the top producer on their platform around here. Offices on Porter Street in Lafayette. In the meantime, we'll talk more about them near the end of the show. You can check them out at www.evangelandsecurities.com. Go ahead, Gabe.
You know who should call Evangel Securities?
Uncle Big Nick.
Jerry Jones.
Oh, Jerry Jones. Boy, they would love to help Jerry Jones. Boy,
yeah.
That'd be
I think Cowboys fans would love it too. Since we're not having a Thursday betting show, I did just want to give this, and this isn't a best bet for the week. This is just one bit of betting advice that I want to give people for Thursday night football. Josh Allen anytime touchdown score. It's juiced to -115. Please take it. He scored 18 rushing touchdowns in 19 games last season.
Oh, we're gonna get into the Bills, and we're gonna get into Bills Dolphins in a little bit, Gabe Henderson. That most certainly is in my best bets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, Josh Allen. At this point, he's up there with Christian McCaffrey as like the safest picks to pick as an anytime touchdown score. So that's one bet.
You think Josh Allen, if he wanted to play running back, he could?
Yes,
I actually think he could too. That'd be.
I think Josh Allen could do anything he wanted on a football field if he wanted. He's got the big frame.
All right, you got anything else before we let you go? Because your pick didn't hit. You just missed last week. We're not gonna. I'm not gonna. Your record won't be part of it yet. I'm gonna wait till you get a win to put you in your record. You got anything else?
I feel good about this week. And I was before we jump into the college ranks. Funnily enough, Alabama played terribly to start that game, but I almost got the backdoor cover late in that game. They scored 28 points in the fourth. And there was a time with about 2 minutes left. I was staring at that box score, waiting. Really thought I might get it, but they just didn't. I don't know what it is with them.
Alabama minus what over USF? What was it?
It was 30.5.
And what did it finish? 28?
Oh, I don't know. They finished a few points off.
All right. Well,
it was relatively close. A touchdown would have done it. But the last thing I want to say.
Spoiler alert! That game is also in someone's best bets today.
Okay. One thing I do want to touch on LSU South Carolina as well. I went back. Thomas and I talked about this because his sports betting tip of the week for the LSU Insider podcast, he talked about this game, and we chatted a little about it off air. South Carolina, they dominated Kentucky, but if you look at the box score, their offense really didn't do much. Yeah. It was really just a field position game. I think this is a weird game. I actually like LSU, and I feel good about LSU here. Not only because of South Carolina's offense, and I don't think they can necessarily do much to move the ball,
or the fact that you're an alum.
Well, that actually, I mean, sometimes I'll tell it like it is, as we always do on this show.
Yeah.
Or at least the way we think it is.
Well, you can't be on the show if you don't tell it the way you think it is.
Exactly. But one thing that makes me feel good, Jim, do you know the last time LSU lost in Columbia, South Carolina?
Ooh, they don't play there very much. I'm trying to think if I remember a time. I'm sure they have, but it's been a long time. 80s,
They've lost
maybe?
once. 1930. First game ever played between the two.
Even I wasn't alive then.
Yep. LSU, I believe, has 21 wins, 2 losses, and a tie against South Carolina, something like that. You check those numbers; they're very similar to that. LSU's dominated South Carolina historically.
They dominate them in everything.
Yeah, not except women's basketball.
Well, yeah, but that's a whole different.
They've lost what, 18 in a row?
Yeah,
something like that. But who doesn't lose?
We'll worry about that in January. Well, look, exactly. I gotta say I don't have a feel for this game either way, but what you say makes sense. I do. Again, this is a game that either LSU is going to come out flat again, and then we have to really worry about where they are. I don't think they're going to cover by 1. Put it that way. I think they're either going to roll and cover by like 2 or 3 touchdowns, or they're going to like just squeak by or even potentially lose. It's not out of the realm with the possibility they lose this game. I mean, you look at the money line; they're plus 200 in the money line. I mean,
South Carolina's defensive line is really good. They're really young, but they're game wreckers. The one thing that makes me feel confident is Brian Kelly said in his press conference today, Tuesday, that he went back and watched the tape. He actually feels really good about the way his offensive line played, which that makes one of us. So I'm glad that it's the man that gets paid $11 million a year and not me. That feels good about that. I would rather him feel secure in his offensive line, but I think they'll ultimately hold up. I think Garrett Nussmeier's enough of a playmaker, and they'll get it done.
Well, I hear you, and we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm just being cautious. It just worries me the way they're playing, because sometimes you think, okay, they got to come around, and then they don't. So I'll believe it when I see it. All right, Gabe, we will see you on Friday. Well, we may or may not see you on Friday, but if not, definitely see you Monday.
Sounds good.
All right. We're having some issues with Tom right now. That's what happens when you have Gabe. Would you go and start texting Tom and figure out how to get him in here? I sent him an invite, but apparently he went into a different room. He's certainly not in here. So we'll get Tom Casale in here in just a moment. Again, Best Bets Wednesday. We're doing Best Bets Thursday on a Wednesday. Okay, I think you figured it out now. He'll be here in just a minute. But again, lastly, Saints, Cowboys, ain't touching that game with a stick. Again, I pick all 16 games, and I have an extended thing with the Saints in my NFL Best Bets column, which is already out. If you can't wait for Friday, you go check it out on bet.nola.com because it came out this morning, on Wednesday morning, at least, depending on when you're watching this. And you go check out, get my thoughts there. And I'll repeat them Friday when Mike Detillier comes on the show. Okay, let's bring in Tom Casale and do our Best Bet segment. Let me prepare myself first. Yikes. Here it goes. Tom, I don't know what we were thinking last week. I know I missed a couple. I got hooked on one. I was way wrong on a couple others, but we all stunk up the joint. The max points we can get in a week is 15. And the fact that I'm leading this with 3 and you're in second place with 1, I think, as my grandpa used to say, enough said.
Yeah, it's it always takes me a couple weeks of football season to get going. That's why I like college basketball, because it's every night, so it only takes you a few days equals a couple weeks in football season. So listen, I'll be honest with you, I was wrong about everything last weekend, pretty much. What did I win? The Seahawks?
You got the Seahawks. No, that was a push. So your record was actually 1-3-1, just like mine is. You got, I don't remember. I don't know.
Nebraska.
That's what it was. Nebraska. Seahawks was a push. So that record is wrong at the bottom, but it's the same as mine. But who cares? We're going to turn the page on last week, because I got to be honest. I never feel really good about week 1 anyway, because it's kind of a crapshoot. I really like my picks this week, and so I would imagine you feel much better about your picks this week. Again, getting a gauge on things as we get into it. We always do better as the season goes along. I'm going to start that earlier this week. Let's before we get to your picks, though, I want to pick your brain. We were talking about Saints, LSU, and Tulane. Real quickly, your thoughts on the Saints. Obviously, none of these games are in your best bets, nor should they be. But do you think what you saw from the Saints last week can be sustained, at least even partly?
Well, I think it's encouraging because we actually saw some innovation on offense. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
So when are the Panthers that bad? We'll find out. Maybe they are, but at least you saw things that, we sat here last year and we're just like, where's the imagination? Where's the designs to get guys open? There was none of it. And so if you're going to take away something, forget that it was the Panthers. The offense looked like a real NFL offense. So I think that's something you can build on moving forward. And win or lose in Dallas, if the Saints play well, then you got a nice big win. You played well in a tough environment. Then those are things I think you can look forward and build on in the future.
LSU Tulane, I agree with you wholeheartedly, by the way. And I will give my official pick out on Friday. It's definitely not one of my best bets. But Saints 6.5-point favorites. The bettors are taking the Saints. They think that's too many points. That is a lot of points, especially where they played. But people believe in more in the Cowboys right now than they're believing in the Saints. We'll see. It's the team I grew up with against the team you grew up rooting for. So, but I will say this secretly. Don't tell anybody. But I grew up loving Roger Staubach, so the Cowboys were my second favorite team until Jerry Jones bought them and fired Tom Landry. That's a whole different story. All right, LSU, Carolina. Tom, LSU is either going to wake up or they aren't, because let's be frank, they give up 21 points to Nicholls State, and they gave up like 150 yards rushing to a kid I covered at John Curtis Christian School about 6-7 years ago in Colin Guggenheim. They better figure things out in a hurry.
Yeah, lucky for LSU, South Carolina's offense isn't good at all. If you look, I know they blew out Kentucky, but if you just looked at that box score and said, what do you think the score of this game was? You wouldn't guess what the final was. So, the defenses played well through 2 games. They got some breaks against Kentucky. They got some turnovers, sloppy play by the Wildcats. I don't know if South Carolina can stay with LSU. This feels like the kind of game where LSU and Brian Kelly go on the road. They beat an inferior team. Everybody gets excited. You know what I mean? Like this,
Yeah.
but they've done a good job of beating these kinds of teams. And I think that will continue. I wasn't very high on South Carolina coming into the season. And even though they're 2-0, I'm not going to change my opinion of them yet. We'll see what they do on Saturday.
Yeah, and I said this a little while ago before you got in the room, but I think there's no in between. I don't think it's going to be close spread wise. I think either LSU wins by 3 touchdowns, or it's like a super tight to the finish game that Carolina covers, or maybe even wins. I think it's one of those two. There's no in between. All right, and lastly, real quickly, Tulane blew a great opportunity last week to beat Kansas State at home. You can't just score 7 points in the second half. We can't blame the refs either, even though I thought that was a bad call at the end there. Doesn't matter. You still got to find a way to score more than 7 points, and your quarterback's got to hold on to the football.
No, I agree. Listen, I thought the call stunk. I'm just sick of the refs throwing flags to throw them. It didn't decide.
That's what that
was. They just threw it. So it's at the end of the game, and you're gonna. But yeah, no, they had chances, I thought, and this is interesting because I had Oklahoma last week, and Houston scored the exact amount of points I thought Houston was going to score, and Oklahoma's offense scored a couple points more, which was that to me, whether you cover a spread or don't is one thing. That performance by Oklahoma last week was the most puzzling to me. And they're ranked like 102nd in offense right now. I don't know if Brent Venables is a head coach. He's a great defensive guy. I think it's the same thing going on with the Jets. I think they got a defensive coordinator pretending to be a head coach.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think that's what's going on with Oklahoma. I think Tulane has a shot here if they can get back up mentally. That's the thing.
That's the big hurdle.
That's the hurdle. You had Kansas State at your house. You had them. It was a great game. It was a really good game to watch, if you didn't have money on it. So if they can get back up, I think they can compete with Oklahoma because I'm not quite sure what's wrong with the Sooners offense right now.
Well, I said I would, if I were forced, and I'm not going to touch this game with a stick either, but if I were forced to play the game, I would play Oklahoma minus 13 only because of what you said. I think emotionally, I think Tulane's going to be in big trouble. But if they come out, this is a game maybe you bet live, because I think if Tulane hangs with them early, I don't think you're going to see a huge change in the line early. And if it looks like they aren't emotionally spent, maybe you bet Tulane. So that's not a game that I would bet beforehand. All right, we're going to get to it here. Tom Casale, betting director at bet.nola.com, is with us every Thursday. Today's Wednesday, recording on Tuesday because of Hurricane Francine. We hope everybody stays safe. Dattitude podcast presented by Evangeline Securities. Again, rough week last week, but new week this week. Tell me why you got Alabama minus 15.5 over Wisconsin as your top bet of the week.
Yeah, so I know people are going to be concerned because Alabama had trouble last week with South Florida. I'd say that South Florida is a really athletic team, and I'm not surprised they gave Alabama a little bit of difficulty for a while for the second straight year. But one of the things I don't think people realize about Alabama is they've had issues at the tackle position early in the season. So their starting left tackle was out. It sounds like he's going to play this year. Their starting right tackle was supposed to play last game, was dinged up just a bit. They kept him out, and he actually came back at the end of the game. The guy replacing him had 4 holding penalties. So they bring back the starter, and they got 80% of their offensive production after they brought this guy in off the bench. And so that's what I kind of see here. I think for the first time all season, Alabama is going to have their offensive line intact. They're going to be able to run the ball. Milroe's going to make some plays down the field. But where I really like him is, I am not a Tyler Van Dyke fan at all. I think he's DJU. It's just a guy that you get in the transfer portal who's not going to do what you expect him to do. This team is averaging 204 yards passing, and they've played Western Michigan and they played South Dakota. They're averaging 27 points a game. I think it's really hard to just line up against an SEC defense and run the ball at them. And I think, Texas last week, Tennessee last week, went on the road. Everybody loved the home underdog, right? Everybody was on NC State. Give me Michigan, 7.5. I feel like it's going to be similar this week. Everyone's going to want to take the big dog. I feel like Alabama rolls in this game.
You make a good point. Again, this is probably not a game I would touch, but if I had to, I certainly wouldn't take Wisconsin. This is not the same Badgers team that
No.
we were so used to seeing for so many years. They've kind of gone downhill the last couple of years, and I don't think, if anything, they might be worse than they were last year. And I don't think they're very good either. All right, this is an interesting pick because I like it too, because this is one where people will think that Minnesota, okay, you beat up on the Giants, who cares? They're getting 6 points at home against the 49ers, who got to go across country on a short week. I find this an interesting pick. I'm with you here.
Yeah, that was kind of my thinking about, I thought 6 points was a lot. Minnesota was kind of one of those teams coming into the year, similar to the Saints. I kind of wanted to see what they did in week one. I like what I saw. I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to the Hall of Fame, but the guy's got weapons around him. And
well, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and if he can just get the ball there. And listen, the Niners, I thought, I'm still surprised they ran the ball so well on the Jets. Yeah. I really am. If you told me the backup running back was going to go for 150, I would have laughed. I don't think Christian McCaffrey would have gone for 150 against that defense. So I think on the road, Brock Purdy hasn't been the same guy sometimes on the road as he is at home. I think this is going to be a close game. I think it's going to be tight throughout, so I'm happy to take the 6 points.
It's an interesting matchup, and you talk about who's going to be able to play for San Francisco. We don't know yet, but on the other side, they got some injuries too. As great as Jefferson is at wide receiver, don't know if Jordan Addison's going to play yet, and TJ Hawkinson's still out, so that hurts them for a while. But I actually kind of like the under in this game. I'm not exactly sure what it is. I'd have to look, but it's in my column. I did 3 days of work in one day, so my head's a little jumbled. But anyway, if I had to take a side, I definitely would take Minnesota there +6. I like the thought process there. Now, you just been hating on Coach Prime over and over again, and you're not going to jump off the train now. You got Colorado State -13 over them Buffs.
No, that's the line's wrong 13. Here. Yeah, it's plus 7.5. No, plus 7.5.
Okay,
at home. Yes, I don't know where you got that one. I'll take 13. No, it's plus 13, Jim.
You know what? Right. You talk about it. I'm going to change it.
So here's the thing: Coach Prime has coached 14 games at Colorado. He's lost 9 outright. He's won 1 by 7.5 points. It was last year against Nebraska when Nebraska couldn't complete a forward pass in the second half. Okay, he's an awful favorite there. He's a favorite of over. He's 1-3 overall. He's 0-3 as a favorite of over 3 points. The team is just so overvalued, and now they're going on the road in a rivalry game against a team that they had to go to overtime last year. They won 43-35 in overtime at home. Keep in mind, Colorado played an FCS team at home and didn't beat them by 7.5.
Right.
Here's the other thing I think is interesting. All right. Give me all the opinions about Shedeur Sanders, but here's the thing that concerns me if you're ever betting Buffalo as a favorite. The Buffalo's as a favorite. I think in games where he's getting hit, he might tap out. He's worried about being the first pick, and I think he's getting advice from his dad. I think this is the biggest scam in the history of coaching. I think Deion Sanders is a youth football coach coaching his son, trying to get him the first pick in the draft. And my opinion is, I don't think Coach Prime is coaching in a year or two. I think he's done. I don't think he even likes it.
He's a scam, baby. Well, by the way, what is and there you go. It's plus 7.5. Colorado State. What is your opinion on this whole Star Spangled Banner thing? I mean, not Star Spangled, but playing the fight song. They won't let it. Coach Prime's not gonna let him play the fight song because it messes up Shedeur's walk-up music, I guess. Have you heard about this?
Yeah,
he's worried about so many stupid things, and not the fact that his team stinks.
Right. And listen, my son plays offensive line and defensive line, and I just know how he would feel if the quarterback threw him under the bus after a game, whether he played well or not. You know what I mean? Like,
no doubt.
Listen, those offensive linemen, my son wore a shirt to school today that says, "I love my quarterback." Those offensive linemen do everything in their power to keep those guys off their quarterback. Right. Okay. So to do that, it's such an awful move. And you got to wonder where that team is at. I mean, this is starting to become a joke now.
And Tom, not only that, that's the kind of thing that really hurts your draft stock. Remember not too long ago, we're talking about Shedeur Sanders being the number 1 pick, and then next year's draft. I don't think there's any way he's the number one pick of next year's draft. I'm not saying he won't go in the first round, but to me, that's the kind of thing that can ruin a career. Okay, I know you got to get out of here, so we got 2 more picks for you. How about the Houston Texans -6.5 over the Bears? I believe this is on Sunday Night Football. The Bears didn't look very good last week, and the Texans, well, they look like the Texans.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure out how the Bears won. I talk about. Here's the thing. Everyone's going to talk about Caleb Williams. I get that, didn't play well. Here's the thing that I really stood out to me with the Bears. Their offensive line got whipped on every play. They couldn't run it. They couldn't pass protect. On every single play, they got whipped. So I think that is sticking in my head. And I was, the Texans impressed me because you get all this offseason hype, all the preseason hype, right? Then you got a tough opener on the road against what I think is a pretty solid team. And the Texans, they gutted out that win. They made the plays they had to make. I think their defensive line is going to dominate in this game. I think this is kind of a coming out party for Houston. I think everyone's going to bet Caleb Williams getting a touchdown or right around a touchdown. They're going to be a popular dog pick. And I think people are going to be scratching their heads after this. And I'll say this too. I like the Bears' talent. I don't know if the Bears have a coach. I got to see more of this guy because they did not look ready to play at all. They got 2 gift touchdowns. So we'll see. But I like Houston a lot this week.
Gabe says Will Levis is an NFL quarterback. That's how the Bears won. That leads. What a segue. That leads right
that's
into
a good segue.
right into Jets Titans under 41 as your final pick of the week. And neither one of these offenses did a whole lot. Aaron Rodgers looked okay, but I thought he didn't have a lot of time to throw the ball. And some of those receivers at times looked lost. And Breece Hall did nothing.
Right. And I will say this about Tennessee. They have a pretty good defensive front. Like I said just a minute ago, they gave the Bears a lot of trouble. And listen, I worry if this Jets line is a little bit overrated because nobody loves Tyron Smith more than me. But if you think you're getting the guy who played for the Cowboys 3 or 4 years ago, you're out of your stinking mind. That's not who he is anymore. He's older. He doesn't move as well. He's got the back problem. So I just worried the line a little bit based on names. And listen, I think Rodgers is interesting. He's threw some Rodgers passes in that game, the passes that, maybe one other human being could throw, Patrick Mahomes, because he's Aaron Rodgers. But doesn't a part of you just wonder if he's like semi-retired a little bit? Yeah. I think the Jets are an interesting team. I think they could be a playoff team. I think they could be an absolute disaster. But this feels to me like a 16-13, 17-13 kind of game. So I'm going to go under the 41.
It just looks like I just got to think he's playing for a reason. He's trying to prove a point, I would think, and he doesn't. But he didn't look like that Monday night. He just kind of like flicking the ball around, not moving. Didn't look like he cared whether he was there or not.
I agree, and I feel that's kind of been his attitude the entire time. I'm not saying he doesn't want to win a Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a difference. Like when every waking moment of your life is about winning a Super Bowl, and when you get to a point where, hey, I hope I win a Super Bowl type of thing. Aaron Rodgers got a lot going on. He's planning for his life after football. He's in the right town. He's getting a ton of media coverage. I don't know. That team just looked disjointed to me. I was really disappointed in the Jets. The Niners didn't do anything spectacular. They just ran the ball.
Especially in the second half.
Yeah, and I think my buddy's a huge Jet fan, and he was obviously distraught after the game. And I told him, I said, here's your problem. The Jets might have the worst overall coaching staff in the NFL. I'm dead serious. I'm not even talking just about the head coach. Their offensive coordinator is a joke. They just down the line, I just think they have, the offensive coordinator, he golfs with Aaron Rodgers, so now he's calling plays. The whole thing is weird. It'll be interesting to see what they do this season.
Absolutely, it will. I think they're going to have to make changes. And look, I was high on Robert Saleh a couple of years ago, but you're right. I mean, he has not proved that he can be a head coach in this league. And if he doesn't do it this year, I think they're forced to make a change. This is about the time when I would ask you, what you like. Usually this is really kind of a crappy week of college football schedule wise. And really to me, the best game on the docket is Friday night. Arizona's at Kansas State. And man, Arizona can really move the ball. They got one of the best receivers in college football, 2 guys that played high school football together. I think Arizona is a very interesting team and a team to watch down the stretch, Tom.
Yeah, it's going to be a great game. I think there's going to be points scored in this. I don't bet a ton of totals in college, but I don't think the defenses are going to dominate. I do think the receiver for Arizona is the best in the country. If you're a Washington fan, I mean, think about this with their new coach who came from Arizona. They have arguably the best receiver in the country. They have a top 5 corner. They have a top 5 offensive line. They have a stud quarterback. That guy can obviously recruit. It's always tough to win in Kansas State. The spread's a little high. I know the money came in on the underdog here. This is one of the games I'll either bet a team total or I'll bet it live probably, because I agree with you. Out of all you knew it was a slow week when you found out game day was going to LSU, South Carolina, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think you're right on the money. If you said what's one game you want to watch in college this week, it would be Kansas State, Arizona.
Lastly, I know you got to go. 30 seconds. I want to pick your brain real quick. What did you think of Northern Illinois beating Notre Dame last week?
I'm shocked. I really am. I just hey, you come off that big win, maybe you're a little lethargic and stuff, but I tell you one thing, that's the head coach of Notre Dame, Marcus Freeman. It's weird. It's really like I see his defensive game plans and they're phenomenal. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you go and you'll lose a game like this. Notre Dame isn't the kind of place where you can lose games like this. I don't care how much they think they love you. Yeah. And so listen, they're about done, because if they lose one more game, they can't lose anymore. They can probably get in with just this one loss because they're Notre Dame. But if they lose one more game with this bad loss, they're out, because there's going to be 6 SEC teams with 2 losses where they're just going to say they got a better strength of schedule. You're done.
Absolutely agree. And, if Notre, like you said, if they would have lost to 2 decent teams, then because they're Notre Dame, they would get the edge. But you can't take them tied with some SEC school with 2 losses. I'm not going to say it's going to be Ole Miss, but if it's a Tennessee or somebody along the ilk of that with 2 losses, and they lost to Georgia and I don't know, Alabama. Yeah, you can't do that. So I mean, I think there's no doubt about it. All right, there's going to be nothing but double digits on the screen next week when we do our best bets. We'll be back on Thursday. Tom Casale, thanks a lot.
Thanks. I look forward to next week. Good luck this weekend, Jim.
Too. Same to you. All right, Tom Casale here on the Dattitude podcast, brought to you by Evangeline Securities on this Wednesday morning, taping it on a Tuesday. That's why we have no comments today. That's the thing that's a bummer. I am so pumped about our regulars, especially. Now, if you're a newbie to the show, we welcome you to come, and Friday we'll be live. So we'll live with Mike Detillier. Come in and say whatever you want. Let us know how you're doing. I got to be honest, though. This is what I didn't expect, because I never really did a lot of live shows before the rebranding. We used to only do the live show on Friday with Larry, and it would only be the part with Larry. Like, I would give my monologue. I would do that on the audio only podcast. And I'm like, we don't need to do that. And then when we quote unquote rebranded and we moved this show to become a live show every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday and Thursday during the football season, we changed the way we did it. We do it. And I got to say, it's the best thing that ever happened to us, because, again, to me, interacting with you is the most fun part of the show. And, of course, Gabe shaking his head in the background. I also enjoy that most of the time, but he's not doing it today. I guess he agrees with me. All right, let's move on and wrap up the show with this. Before we do, I told you earlier, we would let you know more about Evangeline Securities and how they can help you. Not me. I don't have a business. I'm too po. I'm okay with it, though, because I'm having fun. They can help you figure out what your family or privately owned business might be worth, whether it's time to sell. Well, how do they do it? After their complimentary evaluation of your company, if you decide to proceed, Native New Orleanians, Nick Braden, Ron Hemelt, and the folks at Evangeline will begin an extensive auction process. I couldn't read that Monday. I was fumbling all over the place. No fumbles today. Got the fumbles out of our system. They will begin an extensive auction process among established private equity funds from around the world. And they will maximize the return process for the founder and his or her family. Evangeline Securities, the top producer on their platform. Very few companies like them in this area. In fact, really, none worth a damn. You got to go to Evangeline. None with their dedication and success. You got to go to Evangeline. They are fully licensed and ready to serve you. So get in touch with Nick and Ron about what's really important. That's the rest of your life. You can find them at www.evangelinesecurities.com. All right. Uncle Big Nick, as we told you earlier, not available for the show. He is helping his mom get ready for the storm. And so we just typed his picks in. And unfortunately for him, as bad as my record is, we have to show his because it's worse. Yikes. An Ofer. You know what? You know what's weird is he finished above 500 last year and had an Ofer in week 1 last year too. Let's just ignore UBN's picks in week 1 from here on out. Second, how do you go Ofer? I don't know that I've ever had an Ofer. I'd have to go back and look. I don't think I have. I've had a couple 5-0s over the years on Bayou Bets and all that. Not many. I've had a ton of 4-1s. And in fact, I had like a stretch, I think it was last year, where I had like 3 or 4 4-1s in a row, and it was pissing me off. I couldn't get 5-0. But yeah, I'm going to rail on him because he's not here. All right, we're going to go through them real quick. And I didn't even, ask him his thinking. I'm just going to read them out. And we'll talk about him for real quick, and I'll tell you whether I agree with him or not. All right, his top pick of the week, Seattle. Seattle and the Patriots under 38. I like it because the thought process is because Seattle's going across the country after their big win last week, 38 points. No, it's not a lot of points, but I think Uncle Big Nick, we were texting about this earlier, is he just doesn't think the Patriots can score. And look, they had this great week last week. The Bengals defense, nothing spectacular. I mean, is Ramondre Stevenson going to score a touchdown or 2 every week? I doubt it. So if you think the Patriots are going to score like 13 points, which is about right, then you're probably getting a good price on that under. So there you go. His 4-point pick, Ravens minus 9.5 over the Raiders. This almost made my card. As far as my values go, I have this game as Ravens minus 11 over the Raiders. It started, the first time I saw it anyway, it was minus 10. It dropped to 9.5 on Tuesday. That's where it stands as we record this. I like this pick a lot. Look, I know the Raiders, we all know the Raiders aren't very good, but the fact that they're going across the country, I think they have an interesting situation. Look, their quarterback situation stinks. I like Zamir White. Of course, I like Devontae Adams. I'm not a Gardner Minshew guy, and I don't think their defense up front, they will give Lamar pressure, but he'll be able to get around it. I don't know this is a high-scoring game, but I think the Ravens will shut the Raiders down. I love this pick. All right, he's going crossfire with, and I screwed this number up too. It's minus 15.5. I got, this is what happens when you try to cram all this work. So that is not a correct number. It's Wisconsin plus 15.5. They're definitely not 7.5-point favorites over Alabama. So ignore that. Uncle Big Nick's pick, Wisconsin plus 15.5 over Alabama. That's not a game I'm going to touch. Again, as I told Tom, I wasn't just saying it. If I had to pick one, I'd take Alabama minus the 15.5 just because I don't think Wisconsin's any good at all. But, hey, Uncle Big Nick's bound to be much better than he was last week. The next one, I'm on the fence on this one. As you can go read in my NFL picks column, this is basically right on the number of what I had this game. I think I had it Washington minus 2, so I'd probably lean Commanders here, but I just don't trust Jaden Daniels. Look, I think in the long run, I've said this many times, I think Jaden Daniels is going to be great, okay? But right now, he's got some things to work out, and I don't think the Giants are – Danny Dimes is so bad. God, he's so bad. It's like torture watching Danny Dimes. And they don't have a running game worth a damn. So why do I kind of like the Giants if I had to lean? I don't know. I don't like either team. I don't. This is not a game I would touch. Anyway, Uncle Big Nick's got with Washington minus 1.5. By the way, Gabe points out Lamar Jackson is 4-0 straight up after losses last year. That doesn't stop. Don't tell me straight up. This is the betting portion of this show. Tell me what he is against the spread. Come on, man. Anyway, Uncle Big Nick, Washington -1.5 over the Giants. And this is an intriguing pick to me because I know in the NFL, my NFL picks column, I have the Chiefs beating the Bengals, but I'm throwing out the caveat. It didn't make my card. I love this pick. Upset alert. Upset alert. Telling you right now, that is had the Bengals not done what they were supposed to do last week and won by 14 or whatever, this would be more like +4. Instead, you're getting 6. I think the Chiefs win the game, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Bengals win this game. The Bengals, and here I go. I'm just telling Gabe not to do this. I'm about to do it, and it doesn't matter because they're underdogs, so it works in this situation. The Bengals have won 7 out of the last 10 games against the Kansas City Chiefs. Means something? Maybe not to you. Means something to me. I think that Burrow and company will be very focused. The only reason why it didn't make my card is this. The Bengals have played awful in the opening couple weeks since Burrow got there. And it scares me to the dickens. It's the reason why I have 5 knockout picks and I only took the Bengals with 1 of them. You would have think it would have been like free money taking the Bengals. Just take the Bengals and move on. Nope. Didn't do it because I don't trust them. Even against the Patriots. Showed me why. And I don't trust them enough to put them on the card, but I like the pick. Bengals +6 over the Chiefs. All right, here are my picks. I'm going to give you some reasonings for you. My number 1 pick of the week, the LA Rams +1.5 at the Desert Beekmen. Going to Arizona. This line makes 0 zilch sense. None. Makes no sense whatsoever. My power ratings have this as Rams -3.5, or maybe even -4. It's -3.5, -4. You're going to give me that much value? Did you watch the Rams play Detroit last week? I mean, Detroit really could. I mean, I could have seriously underestimated the Lions again, as I've done, 2 years in a row now. I mean, it's only week 1. But the Rams should have won a damn game. Then they go into overtime and knew they were going to lose because they couldn't stop the Lions. This ain't the Lions. Kyler Murray is fine. He's okay. But Marvin Harrison was a no-show. I love James Conner. I mean, but honestly, their defense, all that being said, their defense is not going to stop the Rams. I get Puka Nakua's hurt. Understand that completely. They're not going to stop the Rams. I don't care who's playing. I think the Rams win this one easily. And also in my picks column this morning, I got a trend for you. So what I had been doing, and the reason why I think last week's pick stunk so much, I went 1-3-1. I got my 3-point pick right, and I really got lucky doing that because it was the Bears. I will say this. The Rams have won 16 out of the last 19 meetings with the Cardinals. Now it works because they're an underdog, so straight up is fine. Actually, I like the Rams money line. It's somewhere around even money. I think the Rams smoked the Cardinals this week. I really do. 4-point pick. Buffalo. The Fighting Bills. Gabe talked about it a little while ago. Josh Allen loves playing the Dolphins. He just loves playing the Dolphins. I'll tell you, I don't get the Dolphins at all. They've got so much damn talent on that team on both sides of the football. And just not a fan of the coach, and I'm not a fan of them. I mean, they can put up 70 points in a game, and the next week look like dog turds. This ain't dog turds. Buffalo Bills, remember I told you the Rams won 16 out of the last 19 against Cardinals? Guess what? Bills, same exact number. They don't lose to Miami. Doesn't matter if it's in Miami or in Buffalo. Every now and then they'll struggle, but you're going to give me 2.5 points? Look, folks, Buffalo is, of course, they lost some talent, but to me, getting Stephon Diggs off that team made them better. They probably wish they had Gabe Davis back, but I don't get this spread at all either. This is another one where my line is different than the real line. But give me Bills +2.5 in Miami. I don't like that I'm taking 2 road teams off the bat. So we're going to go with a home dog. And a lot of people, this is my what are you smoking, Derry pick. My 3-point pick of the week is The Carolina Panthers getting 6.5 from the Los Angeles Chargers. Look, this is a pick of, I don't think there's any way that the Panthers are as bad as they played last week. Now, I know they're banged up on the defensive front, and that is going to hurt them. But I'm just saying. I almost put this even higher, but I like the other two picks so much. I think the Panthers come back, and I really think Bryce Young is gonna play much better, even with the pass rush that the Chargers have. Gabe says it's also the quote, "I hate Jim Harbaugh" pick. You know me too well, my friend. It kind of is, but I still like it. 6.5, and there's a reason why it's not 7. I don't know if it's going to go to 7 or not, because they want you to bet. Oh, let me get it before that hook goes bye-bye. Let me get it before it gets to 7 or even 7.5. It's reeling you in. There's something that stinks about it. The Panthers are the worst team ever. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the Panthers won the game straight up. I ain't touching the Chargers and knockout bulls. Chargers going across the country to Carolina. Carolina fighting. Here's the thing with Carolina. If they have any fight in them at all, they're going to show up in this game. If they don't show up and they get the doors blown off, they might be a 1 or 2 win team again. I have too much faith that that my initial prediction that they're going to be better. I didn't say good. I predicted them to be 6-11. If they're going to win 6 games, I'm not saying they got to win this game, but they can't get the doors blown off of them or this season's over. Speaking of not showing up last week and having to do better, my 2-point pick is I'm stubborn. I didn't put it in my best bets, but I did pick the Browns to beat the Cowboys. I'm going with the Browns getting 3 from the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence is a bum. Sorry. No other way to put it. That is the most, seriously, he might be the most overpaid player in the history of the National Football League. Gabe says no. I mean, think about it. Well, Deshaun Watson is on the other side. You can make an argument there. By the way, did you see, getting off topic, I think somebody put on Twitter the other day that Deshaun Watson, if they cut him, they're on the hook for $100 and something million towards that salary cap next year if they cut him. They can't cut him. Gabe, you're right. Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. He stinks. Don't get me into the whole Deshaun Watson might be a worse football player than a person. I'm not going down that road. I threw it out there. Gabe Henderson, you can Henderson at theadvocate.com, boys and girls. Anyway, Cleveland Browns, you're going to give me 3 points. I think the Browns are better than the Jags. Care where the game's being played. I think they're going to fight back, and I think that defense is going to be in Trevor Lawrence's face all day long. I think the Browns win the game straight up. I'll take the 3. And so when I was making my picks in my top 5, I got all dogs. Last week I went favorite heavy, and I got bit by things that I don't do. I have my own little golden rules. I was picking -7.5 and just dumb picks. My top 2 picks were like big favorites. I don't know what I was thinking. Well, I'm thinking this week, and I'm not going to make my 5 top picks and have them all dogs. I got to have a favorite in there. How about the New York Jets? Tom talked about how he likes the under. I don't necessarily dislike the under, but I will tell you this. I think the Jets are going to steamroll the Titans. I think last week's finish carries over into this week, and Gabe and I certainly agree on this. Will Levis is awful. I didn't realize how bad he was last week until I went and looked at his stats. What do you have, 110 yards passing? Something like that. It's terrible. This team is terrible. Jeff Duncan was giving me crap in the press box Sunday because he likes the Titans this year. Titans are going to beat the Bears. Then he's giving me crap at halftime, and I'm like, oh, Dunk. Check out the scoreboard. Titans are terrible. I predicted them to win 3. I'm sticking with it. Meanwhile, I think the Jets are going to have a resurgence kind of week. I think you don't piss off Aaron Rodgers. We'll find out if he cares this week. So if he doesn't care, we'll see it in a hurry. I think the Jets win this one big. There you go. So to recap, UBN's got Seattle Patriots under 38, Ravens -9.5 over the Raiders, Wisconsin plus 15.5 over the Crimson Tide of Alabama, the Washington Commanders -1.5 over the Giants, and the Cincinnati Bengals +6 over the Chiefs. I have, in order from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Rams +1.5, a gift at Arizona. Buffalo Bills +2.5 at Miami. The Panthers at home getting 6.5 from the Chargers. Got to go cross country. Cleveland Browns on the road +3 at Jacksonville. The Jets also on the road, a favorite -3.5 over the lowly Tennessee Titans. All right, Saints-Cowboys. Again, we apologize. No Thursday show. Everybody stay safe out there. We are going to be back on Friday, God willing, that is. If anything happens and we can't do a show on Friday, I will try to let you know via Twitter. But we are scheduled as of now to have Mike Tillier on Friday. And we will talk about Saints-Cowboys. Will be about 60% of the show. We might touch on LSU, South Carolina. And then I'm going to pick Mike's brain, as I would with Larry, on the whatever I think of the 4 best NFL games of the week are. I know one of them is Texans-Bears. That'll be in there. What about Bills-Dolphins, maybe? That is, by the way, that's the Thursday night game, isn't it, Gabe? Yeah, I didn't mention that before. Bills-Dolphins is Thursday night. Put it on the schedule. So we will not talk about Bills-Dolphins because it will already be played. Maybe I'll ask him what he thought of the game. So I will have a record from this week when we come back on Friday. I want to thank Gabe Henderson. I want to thank Tom Casale. I want to thank Uncle Big Nick, even though he wasn't on the show. That will wrap it up for us on this Wednesday, recording on Tuesday. We hope you can join us on Friday when we welcome in Mr. Detillier. A reminder to subscribe to our Dattitude YouTube page. Click the little bell to receive notifications when we go on the air live. If you haven't subscribed now. No. I've been asking nicely for 2 months. Stop what you're doing. Unless you're driving, go subscribe. Or if you're drinking, don't be drinking and driving. If you're drinking, no, because you may end up subscribing to somebody's YouTube page I don't like. So wait till you're sober. You can also find us wherever you get your podcasts, including Apple, Spotify, many more. You can also find a replay of the show on NOLA.com/sports. Gabe is going to have a Thursday night preview, best bet included, posting Wednesday at 3 p.m. Got player props articles coming out Thursday. You can check out all his work at bet.nola.com, along with Tom Casale, along with some of my own. I'm still writing every now and then. Almost forgot how to type it. It's been so long. And then, of course, all of our Saints Insider guys at NOLA.com/Saints. You can remember that one. Everybody, seriously, all kidding aside, everybody stay safe out there. If you feel like you need to go, go. If you're not from New Orleans, feel free to check up on us. You know how to get in touch with me. But this Dattitude family, got to look out for one another. We'll see you on Friday. Take it easy, my friends.
If you're looking for the latest scoop and in-depth interviews on the Saints, the NFL, the Pelicans, LSU, along with the best bets of the week, then lucky you. Along with high-powered, in-the-know guests who cover our teams, Jim Derry brings plenty of Dattitude. And he'll always tell you the way it is, or at least the way he thinks it is.